Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome you all to my channel or to our channel, Future Endeavors. First of all, I want to say thank you to all those who have supported me so heavily after seeing my first video and have inspired me to carry on this channel and to post more videos so that it can be more helpful to you and so that you can learn science in a better way. So after paying a thanks again to all of you, I would like to start my class today. As in the previous class I have finished at the point just I have introduced the postulates of matter. Today I will be beginning from the postulates of matter. So what are the postulates of matter that I have not discussed on the previous class? So today I will be first discussing what are those postulates of matter, kinetic theory of matter, as I should say. So let us see now. So write down the heading: postulates of kinetic theory of matter. So this will be our topic in the beginning today: postulates of kinetic theory of matter. So let us see what are the postulates. Now see, as I have said earlier that matter is made up of tiny particles. So if I see the first postulate, rather the first postulate is saying that each and every matter is made up of small tiny particles. So I should write each and every matter is made of tiny particles, and each particle is in random motion. Note it down that each particle is in random motion. So what do you see here? That each and every matter is made up of very tiny particles, and these tiny particles are in constant random motion. So I can say whenever any particle or any object is in motion, I can say that that particular object or particle is having kinetic energy in it. So these particles, I should say pulses, particles have kinetic energy, okay. So what is kinetic energy? We will discuss this in a later class in a chapter which is present in your syllabus known as energy. So rather just remember that each particle is in constant random motion and these particles are said to have possessed kinetic energy. Now you will be guessing, we do not see that a solid like your book or copy or pen, you cannot see there any particle which is moving, you cannot see that movement. Yes, rather it is true, you cannot see that movement with your naked eye, but if you see under a microscope or under a very powerful microscope rather I should say, we can observe that small random motion, and that random motion, as I will discuss also later, it is very less in solids, a little more in liquids, and very more in gas. So just remember, the first postulate of the kinetic theory of matter states that each matter is made up of tiny particles and each particle is in constant random motion and each particle have or possesses a certain amount of kinetic energy. So this is the first postulate. Okay, fine. Now what is the second postulate? So coming on to the second postulate, I can say what is the second postulate? Let us see. So postulate number 2. Second postulate states that, what does it state? That as we increase the temperature, okay, so as temperature is increased, as temperature is increased, motion of particles increases, and if motion of the particles increases, I can say it also leads to an increase in kinetic energy. So motion of the particles increases, leading to an increase in kinetic energy. So I am writing the short form of kinetic energy as Ke. So I hope you will understand. Ke refers to kinetic energy. So as the temperature of the particles, or as the temperature of the matter as a whole is increased, the random motion of the particles increases. Also it leads to an increase in kinetic energy, and the vice versa happens, That means if we decrease the temperature, motion of the particles decreases, kinetic energy of the particles also decreases. Okay, so in another way I can interpret it like that. See, we cannot directly measure the kinetic energy of the particles. It is very difficult to directly measure that energy. Rather, I can say that this temperature is a indicator of the kinetic energy that the particles possess. What I mean to say is, as you see that is an increase in kinetic energy of the particles, how can you understand it, or how can you feel it from outside? I can say that as the kinetic energy of the particles increases, or the motion of the particles increases, there is an increase in temperature of that particular matter. So in this way I can say that temperature is you may note it down, temperature is a indicator of the kinetic energy that the particles possess. Okay, so I can say it in that way also. So this is the second postulate of the kinetic theory of matter. Now moving on to the third postulate. So what is the third postulate? Let us see. Okay, what is the third postulate? Now see, before discussing about the third postulate, I would rather like to inform you about one thing. If you have any query, you can ask me in the comment section. From the channel and on my behalf of my channel, I apologize to you all for some due technical faults. The comment section was turned off in the first video. Also, I think all the viewers who have seen the first video were not able to press the bell icon. So that technical problem has been rectified, and from this video onwards you can post any comment, ask any question or queries, and also you can press the bell icon for further videos. Thank you. Okay, so now let us come back to the third postulate. What does the third postulate say? That in every matter, the particles in every matter have what can I say, have very minute spaces in between them, This space is called the, what is this space called? This space is called the interparticle space. What is called? Interparticle space. Now here I want to mention that this interparticle space may not be always very minute. what do you say, that the interparticle space may not be always very minute, may not be. Why I am saying this? As because although in solids this interparticle space is very small, as we quickly move on to or transform a solid into a liquid, and from that liquid to gas, the space increases and it does not remain minute. So I should not use that, but we should not be using this word very minute, because this is not always true. So we may rather say the particles in every matter have spaces in between them. So just do not use this term specifically or for any kind of matter. This term can be used specifically for particularly solids. So I can say that particles in every matter, just omit the portion, have spaces in between them, which is called the interparticle space. Okay, fine. So this is the third postulate. Now coming on to the fourth postulate. What is the fourth postulate? Now let us see what is the fourth postulate. What is the fourth postulate? Let us see. So fourth postulate states that particles in matter are attracted to each other by a force which is known as the interparticle force of attraction. Interparticle force of attraction. So you see, when you see a solid particle, you see that the particles are not just moving away from each other, they are bounded. So that force of attraction is referred to as the interparticle force of attraction. Now on this topic I would discuss something, that this interparticle force of attraction, you may be saying that a gas does not have any boundations, they seems to be boundless, particles in a gas. Yes, rather you are right. This interparticle force of attraction actually varies, and as I have said in the previous case, for the interparticle space, as I have said that it is very less for solids, a bit more for liquids, and quite a huge amount for the gaseous particles. Likewise, I can say that the force of attraction in solids is the most, in liquids it decreases a bit, and in gases it is very less. So on that basis I can say that in gases you see the particles are attracted with very less force. That is why they are not bounded very strongly, rather they seem to be boundless, they seem to move away from each other randomly. Okay, so we'll discuss this as we compare the three states of solid, liquid and gas. In that discussion we will compare in which state the force of attraction is maximum, in which state the particle space is maximum. We will discuss this. Okay, fine. Now under this fourth postulates I would discuss another two terms which are quite important, you need to know about it. That is, this force of attraction are of two types. This force of attraction are of two types. What are those two types of force of attraction? One is called the force of cohesion, or I can see it as cohesive force. Okay, and the other part or the other force is the force of adhesion, or rather I can say the adhesive force. Okay, so what are these two forces, cohesive force and adhesive force? Now you see, when I refer to the force of attraction between the particles, say I can see, consider a glass of water. You see, when you just pour the glass of water, means I am talking about the water in itself. When you pour the water onto on the floor, you see that the water flows in a continuous channel. It's continuously flowing. Until and unless you create a break in that flow of channel, they remain stick to each other, means you see a continuous channel of water. Why does this happen? This is because when you think of the particles of water only, that is the particles of the same kind, that is a force of attraction. Definitely there is a force of attraction which keeps the particles of water bounded to each other, and thus they flows in a channel, continuous channel. That type of force is referred to as the cohesive force. So what is the definition of cohesive force? You may rather note it down. Cohesive force, I can define it as the force of attraction which is present in between the particles of same type. The force of attraction which is present in between the particles of same type can be referred to as the cohesive force. Fine, I hope you have understood it. Next, if I talk about the adhesive force, you see, after you have poured the water from the glass, you might have totally emptied the glass, but still there are some droplets of water that remain attached to the walls of the glass. There are some droplets of water that still remain attached to the glass. Now, why does this happen? This is because of this adhesive force. Why? The glass particles rather have a tendency to attract the water particles. That is why some water particles remain sticked to the glass wall. So this is adhesive force. So rather, how can you define the adhesive force? This may also be noted down. Adhesive force can be defined as the force of attraction between the particles of different kind. Adhesive force, I repeat, the force of attraction between the particles of different kind is the adhesive force. Fine. So I hope it is clear to you all the difference between cohesive and adhesive force. Okay, now let us move on to the next postulate, the fifth postulate. What is the fifth postulate? Fifth postulate says that what does the fifth postulate say? Let us see. Fifth postulate, it says that if interparticle force increases, what happens? Interparticle space decreases. Clear? See, if I increase the force of attraction, obviously the particles will tend to attract each other with a greater force. They will come close to each other, and as a result the space obviously between them will decrease. So this is the fifth postulate. Interparticle force increases, interparticle space decreases, and the vice versa happens. and the vice versa happens. Rather, if I should say, as the interparticle force decreases, the interparticle space increases. Okay, so I can say that interparticle force and interparticle space are inversely related to each other. This is said to be inversely related. These two properties, or these two, rather I should say, characteristics of a matter are inversely related. This is the fifth postulate of matter. So now you have, I think it is clear to you all what are the 5 postulates of matter, kinetic theory of matter. Now on the basis of this, we would rather discuss about the, or compare the 3 states of matter: solid, liquid and gas. So now let us move on to the next topic, a brief comparison between the solid, liquid and gas. Okay. So if I say, or think around yourself about 3 states of matter, say water. The water that you are drinking is in liquid form, so it is a liquid state of matter. That same water, when you are keeping it in a refrigerator, in the deep fridge rather I say, for some time it freezes. You see it in the form of solid, which is known as ice. And that same water, when you heat it, rather say, it starts moving into the gaseous form, which is the water vapor. So you see, any matter can be present in any of its 3 states. So if I make a comparison between the 3 states, what will I be getting? So let us see. So just make a heading, comparison between solids, liquids and gases. So I am rather terming it as comparison between the 3 states. Comparison between the 3 states. Okay, comparison with the 3 states. So I am just presenting that comparison in the form of a chart, which will be helpful to you. So just make 3 columns. One is for solid, okay, one is for liquid, and the other one is for gas. So just make a chart with 3 columns. From this comparison, you might be thinking of, sir, what are the characteristics of solids and what are the characteristics of liquid, what are the characteristics of gas? So I would rather not discuss it separately. After seeing this comparison or understanding this comparison through that chart, which you might be copying on your notebook, you will automatically get all the characteristics of solid, all the characteristics of liquid and all the characteristics of gas under these 3 columns. So we do not need to discuss those separately. From this comparison, we will understand very easily what are the characteristics of these 3 states separately also. So do not worry, just think about the comparison or understand the comparison, everything will be okay. So now see, if I first think of solid, first let us come to the interparticle force of attraction. So if I think of the interparticle force of attraction, what is your viewpoint? When you see that ice, when you see that water, and when you see that water vapor, think of these 3 states. Think of these 3 states of water itself. It will be helpful to you. You see that ice, the particles in ice seem to be bounded. They are not just moving away from each other. So I can say that in solid, interparticle force of attraction. So first point is, this is the first point. First point says that interparticle interparticle force of attraction, interparticle force of attraction is maximum here, is maximum here. Note it down, is maximum. Okay, so interparticle force of attraction is maximum in solids, maximum. Now if you think of the water that you are drinking, if you think of the water that you are drinking, you see the water in the particles of water rather seem to be moving a bit more than the solids, than the ice, you say. So I can say that this force of attraction is less than solid and more than gas. Okay, less than solid and more than gas. So you can see the force of attraction in liquids is less than solid, but it is more than gas. And when you think of the water vapor, they seem to be boundless. The particles rather seem to move here and there randomly. So I can say that in gas, the force of attraction is the least. So note it down. In gas, the force of attraction is least. In solid, the force of attraction is maximum. So I hope it is clear to now that the force of attraction varies from solid, liquid to gas. Okay, maximum in maximum in solid, a bit less in liquid, and the least or minimum in gas. Okay, so it is clear to you. I think it is clear. Now let us move on to the second property of the states of matter. So when you think of the, I think you have noted it down, I can rub it. So if you think of the second characteristics, I will say, what about the spaces in between the particles? What about the spaces in between the particles? Can you think of what about the spaces in between the particles? Now see, as I have already discussed, the space is inversely related to the force of attraction. I have mentioned it. Okay, so I can say that when the force of attraction is maximum in solids, obviously the interparticle space will be minimum in solid. So interparticle space is least or minimum in solids. Okay, so you may note it is the least in solids. Now if I think of the liquids, you can easily understand that space is more than solids but less than liquids. Sorry, rather I should say gases, is less than gases. Okay, so the space, interparticle space, is more compared to the solids, but obviously it is less compared to the gases. And if I think of the gas, I think now it is very much clear to you that the interparticle space will be the most in gases. So in gas, the space is most or greatest, or rather I should say maximum. Okay, so you should note it that it is the greatest in the case of gas. And you can also verify or relate it to your practical experience. You see, when you move through your room, or rather say move through any space, you have gaseous particle all around you, atmosphere is present all around you. Wherever you go on earth, obviously atmosphere is present all around you, and when you move through those gases, it feels like that. Does it feel like that anything is opposing you? No, I don't think so. You cannot actually feel that anything is opposing you. So if you move through very closely spaced particles, so rather you would have felt that those particles are hitting you, those particles are opposing you. But when you move through the atmosphere, obviously you cannot feel that opposition. Whereas in liquid, say those who know to swim, or I think everybody in some or the other time has gone to some pond, gone to river, or while going to some holiday spots where there is a beach, ঠিক আছে? So you see, when you are bathing in that water, okay, you feel that the water particles are hitting you, or when you think of rain falling and you are moving through that rain, the raindrops seem to hit you. So I can say, or you can easily understand that the particles are bit closer in the liquids, that is why they are hitting you. And if you think of solids, say if the teacher in the class is taking class in your class, and at that time you are talking, the teacher hits you with the chalk in his hand or her hand, that hits you very hard. Why? Chalk is a solid particle, and in that solid the particles are very closely packed, so when it hits you, you rather feel it, yes, something has hit me. So you can easily see that if you think of the phenomenon that are happening around you, you can understand easily the characteristics of the solid, liquid and gas. Okay, so now let us move on to the third point of comparison. Interparticle attraction, first point. Second point is the interparticle space. What will be the third point? See, third point I would say, now see, if you see a solid object, you will see, say the pencil box that you are having, it does have a definite shape. Rather it may be a cubical shape, or it may be a cuboidal shape, whatever it may be, it has a definite shape. So solids always have definite shape. Okay, and this can be said because I have already discussed the solids have a very high intermolecular force of attraction, and very less space in between them. So the solids have always a definite shape. Thinking of the liquid, you think of the water that you are drinking. Again I am taking that example of water. Whatever be the shape of the container, in whichever container you are pouring that water is taking shape of that particular container. So I can easily say, or you can easily think of that the liquids do not have a definite shape. So liquids do not have a definite shape. Clear? So liquids do not have a definite shape. Okay, fine. And what about the gases? You can easily understand that gases will also, like liquids, have no definite shape, because wherever you keep a gas, it will take that shape of that container. It does not create any problem. So for gases also I can say it is same as that of liquid, that is do not have a definite definite shape, do not have a definite shape. Okay, so solids have a definite shape, liquids do not have a definite shape, and gases also do not have a definite shape. Okay, now talking about the volume. I have mentioned what volume is. I have said that in the first class, each and every matter, whatever thing you are referring to as matter, will have a definite mass and a volume, isn't it? It will occupy volume, it will occupy a space. I have said it. So what about when I compare, when I think about the volume in case of solid, liquid and gas? Let us see. Again I am referring to that, say that ice cube which I have mentioned that earlier, ice cube. When I am saying about that ice cube, I would say it has definite volume, obviously, until and unless that ice melts. Okay, you can also think of the the pencil, that does have a definite volume. Say the pencil box, you can measure the various dimensions of that box, that is the length, breadth or height. I think you have some idea about these measurements as you have read the physical quantities and measurements chapter in class 7. Okay, so I can think you know about this, I can assume it that you know about this. So from that I can say that solids have a definite volume. So I think it will be point number 4. Okay, solids have a definite volume, that I have definite volume. Okay, have definite volume. Liquids, although they may not have a definite shape, but they do have a definite volume, have definite volume. Why I am saying this? Think of, I will give you an example. Say you have bought a bottle of 500 ml of a cold drinks, say Maaza. Okay, obviously when you pour that 500 ml of Maaza from that bottle into a 1 liter jar or 1 liter bottle, does it happen that the amount of Maaza also increases, the bottle gets filled up, that 1 liter bottle? No, definitely not, definitely not. That bottle will not be filled up completely, because liquids have a definite volume. That 500 ml of Maaza that you have bought will remain as 500 ml, it will not become more or not become less if you have not wasted in pouring that Maaza from the 500 ml bottle to the 1 liter bottle. So it will have a definite volume. Think of the gases. Yes, the gases do not have any shape and also do not have any definite volume. So do not, note it, do not have definite volume, do not have a definite volume. Think of it, I am giving you an example. Say if you take a balloon filled with air, and if you just take a vacuum space, okay, it's difficult for you to create a vacuum space, but it is seen experimentally that if we empty that air filled balloon into a large vacuum space, what happens? The gas suddenly expands and occupies the total volume, total large volume. The particles just spread away from each other, move away from each other. They have a very, very less force of attraction. As a result, they just rapidly spread away from each other and occupies the entire volume. And if you say, if I have a definite amount of gas, say if you have a empty, okay, I am giving another example. You take a empty bottle, now that empty bottle is not totally empty, it has air filled in it, it's gas. You compress that bottle, what happens? It crunches easily, and that if no small hole or there is no opening in that bottle, you will see that gas is compressed. It adjusts itself to that small volume. When you crush the volume becomes small, it adjusts into the small volume. But if you have liquid inside that bottle, if you try to crush it, it will be difficult for you, because the liquid will not adjust to the small volume. So liquids have definite volume, but gases do not have a definite volume. I think by now it is clear to you, and I think you will remember it, that gases neither have definite shape, neither have definite volume. Liquids have a definite volume but no shape. Solids have definite volume as well as definite shape. Now quickly moving on to the next point. So it will be, next point will be point number 5. So I rather note it down. So point number 5. Okay, so what is the point number 5? Now see what is point number 5. Okay, now as you think of a solid substance, if you try to compress it, do you find it very easy? I rather think not. You think of a, say, a very hard thing, an iron rod. Can you compress it with your hands? No, I don't think so. This is because when you try to compress, you are actually trying to move the particles more closer. Okay. So if you think of solids, I have already mentioned that the particles have very less space in between them, a very less space. So the particles cannot be moved close to each other further. So I can say that solids are not at all compressible. So are not at all compressible. Okay. So solids are not at all compressible. It cannot be compressed easily. I am not saying that it cannot be compressed totally. No, I will not say that, because if you see, when you try to compress the wall of your home, you cannot. But given that the wall of your, that same wall of your home is compressed through two bulldozers. Two bulldozers are just demolishing your house. Rather, I just hope that it does not happen any day. But say, think of that situation: a housing being demolished by the bulldozers, two bulldozers. When a brick or a part of your wall comes in between those two heavy masses of those spherical shaped objects that the bulldozers do have in their front, when the wall comes in between those two spherical objects, the walls gets crushed. So it was solid. It was not compressible by you, but it can be compressed. So I should rather say that they are not at all compressible. This point is actually relative. You have to, but in general way, if you think, I can say, okay, solids are not compressible. On that viewpoint, I can say that liquids are a bit compressible. Liquids are, I should rather use the word, slightly compressible. Slightly compressible. Okay, so liquids are slightly compressible. And if you think of gas, as I mentioned in the previous example, if you take that bottle, empty bottle, you crush it, you can easily do it. So gases are very easily compressible. Very easily compressible. Okay, fine. So gases are very easily compressible. So in this way, you can think of the compressibility of gas, liquid and solid. Now quickly moving on to the next point, the sixth point. What is the sixth point? Let us see. So I should write it. The sixth point. Sixth point, I can say, do you think, or have you ever imagined that can a solid flow? Can a solid flow? You think of that ice, it does not flow. Think of that pencil in your hand, it rather does not flow. So I can say that solids do not flow. Whereas think of the liquids, obviously they can flow. So liquids can flow. And think of the gases, they can very easily flow. So the gases can also flow. Okay, clear? So here I want to mention an important point, that if you think of liquids and gases, these two states of matter are referred to as fluids. Okay, so what is fluids? Some may be thinking that fluids are only liquids. Okay, some think that fluids are only liquids, but no, it is wrong. Both gas and liquid can be referred to as fluid, as because both these states can flow. So anything that can flow is a fluid. It is not that only liquids can flow. So you have to keep in mind, anything that can flow is a fluid. So gases and liquids are fluids. Okay, fine. Now coming on to the 7th point, and I think that this will be your last point of comparison. 7th point. What is the 7th point? Okay, let us see. If I think of the 7th point, what is the point number 7? So point number 7, you can say the solids have, if you think of a pencil box, how many surface you can see? How many surface? Think of the pencil box. I think there are one upper surface, the second is the lower surface, this side surface, and on these two side surface. So there are in all 6 surfaces. So solids do have definite number of free surfaces. Okay, so I can say they have definite number of free surface. Okay, liquids, you think of liquid, you take a glass of water, that have only one free surface, that is the upper surface. So liquids have only one free surface. Remember it, liquids have only one free surface, one. And think of the gas, they do not have any free surface. Gases do not have any free surface. Okay, although I have said this was the last point, so I would rather like to add another point, point number 8. Definitely this will be your last point. I hope you have noted it down, the 7th point. Point number 8 is that when you think of the point number 8, I would say point number 8. Okay, what does the point number 8 say? Think of a solid. You have kept a pencil box on your table, say, or the book on the table. Obviously that book exerts a pressure in which direction? It exerts a pressure in the downward direction. And now many of you will be thinking, sir, what is pressure? Obviously I will explain this term later on a chapter, but for now just remember that solids exert pressure in downward direction. Fine. Okay, downward direction. Liquids on the other hand exert pressure in all directions. Think you have got a bottle filled with water and you compress it, and some holes are made on all the surfaces of that bottle. You see that that water squeezes out of all those holes, be it on the top, be it on the side, be it on the bottom. From all the holes water is squeezed out. So liquids exert pressure in all directions. It's same for gases also. They also exert pressure in all directions. Okay, so and think of the gas, they also exert pressure, rather I should say in all direction, okay, because if you think of a container having certain amount of gas and you make some small holes, say if you consider a balloon filled with air, and if you prick that balloon on any of the side, you will observe that air is flowing out with a high pressure from that hole, be it on any side, it doesn't matter. So I can say that gases also exert pressure in all directions. So for today I think it is quite a lengthy lecture but it was necessary. So I have discussed about the solid, liquid and gas based on these various postulates of the kinetic theory of matter. In the next class we will discuss about the conversion of one state of matter into another state. So till the next class, here we will end our class, and please do subscribe our channel, and if you like it, press the like button, and also if you have any query, you can comment, you can mention in the comment section, which has been turned on. So I hope it will be a good experience for you. So thank you, see you in the next class.